Smart practice is focused, it has lots of attention to detail, it's goal-driven, both daily and over long periods of time, and it should be tracked, at least mentally, if not on paper. No more sitting and drilling passages or scales for 30 minutes or an hour while your brain wanders away. Make a plan, stick to it, and you'll learn faster than you ever have before in your life. Hey, welcome back to Pianist Academy. Today we're talking about how to optimize your practice time and get more out of each minute that you spend on the bench. And what it really comes down to is setting goals. I've developed what I'm calling a practice plan guide and template to help you in setting your goals, keeping track of them, and reflecting on your practice time. Now, this PDF guide is free to download if you just sign up for the Pianist Academy email newsletter. The link to that is at the top of the description down below, so be sure and look for that. As an added bonus, when you sign up, you're going to also get a free piece of sheet music. It's an intermediate solo piano piece that I've composed called Contemplation No. 2. So pause this video, go sign up, grab those downloads, and when you come back, we will walk through just how to use the templates together. The best kind of practicing is full of goals for us to achieve. Those goals can take lots of different shapes. We could have goals about our technical exercises or our etudes. We could have goals to learn repertoire. We could have memorization goals. We could have goals about being more musical, working on chord voicings, creating a better line in our melodies, even working on smoother pedaling. Coming up with these goals for yourself is one thing, and that's great, but writing them down is even better. Now let's steer away from goals that are too simple, like learn for release or learn the B-flat minor scale. Now sure, both of those are going to be possible, but as we explore music, there is so much more depth and detail that we can go into. Let's skip over to page 5 of the guide. This is all about setting your long-term or your monthly goals. And at the top of the page, I have given you a handful of questions to ask yourself. Since we're thinking about long-term goals, we should be aware of any performances or recitals that we have coming up. Now, this video is specifically for the late beginner through the early advanced pianist, so you might ask questions like, when is my recital this season? Am I playing one piece or two pieces or more pieces? Do I know what those pieces are yet? Is this the month of the recital, or do I have a few months? If there's an important date like that that's coming up this month or in the next 1 to 2 months, write it down here, and then you can structure a practice plan going backwards from that performance date backwards to today to make sure that we accomplish everything that we need to. Let's talk about our technique, or our etudes if we're working on those. This is a great page to make a note of where you currently are. So, for example, how many beats per minute are your scales right now? And how many octaves are you practicing? Make a note of that. And then make a note of a reasonable goal you'd like to achieve by the end of the month. That could be something like increase my C major scale in 2 octaves from quarter notes at 80 beats per minute to quarter notes at 96 beats per minute. These goals can, and they actually should, feel a bit challenging since you're giving yourself a full month to actually accomplish them. On this page, you could also make a goal of practicing sight reading every day or every 2 days. Just write that down here to remind yourself. If you're a late beginner or an early intermediate pianist and you learn a lot of new songs fairly quickly, make a goal of how many songs you'd like to learn this month. If you're a late intermediate or an early advanced pianist and you're working on fewer pieces, but they're longer and more complex, perhaps you can finish learning them this month, but perhaps they need a little bit more time. Just write down here what you'd like to accomplish with that repertoire by the end of the month. That could be as simple as learning all of the notes for 2 or 3 pieces. Maybe it's getting last month's repertoire memorized and up to performance tempo. Maybe it's spending more time on phrasing and musicality and discovering what the composer was feeling when they wrote the music. Those are all great goals, and they can all be written down right here on the monthly page. All right, feeling comfortable with your monthly goals? Let's move on to the next page, your weekly goals. So now it's time to break those monthly goals down into more achievable chunks. Using our scale example from the monthly goal sheet, we now know that we'd like to speed our C major scale up from 80 beats per minute to 96. So if we want to go up in tempo by 16 beats per minute, we can divide that by 4 for the 4 weeks of the month. And we're going to find out that in our first week, we should go from 80 to 84 beats a minute. In our second week, we should go from 84 to 88. Our third week from 88 to 92, and our final week from 92 to 96. Now, 4 beats per minute increase feels so much more achievable, right? And we have an exact plan for how to get there each week. We can follow a similar pattern for anything else that we're working on, whether that's arpeggios, adding new keys for our technical practice, or more. Looking down the page further, there are 4 sections for you to list pieces of repertoire that you're currently working on and then detail exactly what you'd like to accomplish this week. Like we did with the scale example, go back, reference your monthly goals, break that into 4 easier chunks, and then just start by filling in the first chunk here. You might find that you need to clarify or make your monthly goals bigger once you see just how much you can accomplish each week. All right, now we get to the daily goal sheet. This is the page that you're going to use most often. The very last page of this PDF is a blank daily goal sheet for you to use and print or use on your tablet as much as you want. But if we go back to page 4, I've given you an example sheet already fully filled out to help guide you through this process. So at the very top of the page, we need to list our total time available to practice. This is so important. We want to stay focused at the piano and we want to make the most of our time. Now, if you have a teacher, they might have a suggestion for how much time you should be spending practicing each day. But sometimes that number goes up and down throughout the week as we have things to do, and sometimes we simply don't have a teacher to help us through that process of finding the amount of time. So take a minute and think about just how much time you have today to practice. Write that number at the top of the page. Now we have an exact number of minutes or hours that we can divide our work into. On my sheet, I've listed 50 minutes. Continuing down the page, I've listed technique goals in scales and arpeggios for the day, and I've given those goals 15 minutes to accomplish. That's a pretty good amount of time, and it's relatively close to the 25% of practice that I'd recommend spending on technique. Further down the page, I've listed 2 pieces of repertoire, and I've allocated them 20 minutes and 15 minutes respectively, and I've listed some very specific goals for the day. So, good rhythm and good articulation. Memorization of a specific page. There's a tempo goal. There's a goal of learning notes and also looking for patterns. Notice that the 3 sections, we have 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, those add up to my total of 50 minutes that I listed at the top of the page. I could even put a timer on or set an alarm and set it for exactly the length of time that I'm practicing this bit for. And when it goes off, move on to the next bit. Now this does a couple of things for us. If we feel overconfident and like we've already completed what we've set out to do, this timer is going to keep us on task and extra focused so that we have a very solid practice session. Right? Sometimes we can get into practicing and something's going really well one day, but if we don't spend enough time on it, we're going to find that the next day we come back, it's all of a sudden not as solid. So if we practice through our entire allotment, even if things feel great, we're going to feel the difference tomorrow and the day after. Now, vice versa, if we can't quite get through everything, we know that when the timer goes off to not keep drilling away, but to move on. Trust that you have made progress and maybe consider spending a different amount of time on it in the future. So when you come back to practice tomorrow, see where you're at that particular day, see how much progress you did make from yesterday, and then make an assessment. Do I need to add more time today to that particular task, or do I add more time later in the week? Adjusting goals is something that we can and that we should do regularly, not only as we reflect on our daily practice, but as we learn how to practice more and more efficiently, we're going to find that our goals are definitely going to change over time. The very bottom of this page has some daily reflection questions for you on the left, and I'd encourage you to write your answers to them in the box on the right side of the page. Be positive and congratulate yourself when things go well, and list what those things are that went well. And also at the same time, be real and be constructive with yourself. If something didn't go well, make a note of it so that you'll remember tomorrow. And if you see a teacher, consider bringing in your filled out sheets to your lesson so they can see exactly what you were thinking about throughout the week. And if you're playing more for enjoyment than performance, then allot some daily time just to play and enjoy. That in itself should be a goal, perhaps for all of us. Even if we're working towards something very specific or a performance, we need to remember to sit down and enjoy. So this was a deep dive into how to use this particular guide, but we can sum up today by saying smart practice is focused, it has lots of attention to detail, it's goal-driven both daily and over long periods of time, and it should be tracked, at least mentally, if not on paper like this. Now you can print out as many of these blank pages in this guide as you'd like and write on them, or if you prefer to work off a tablet and not print on paper, you can save each blank page on its own as its own document and use your digital pencil and write away. So I challenge you, how detailed can your goals be? Can you be disciplined and write them down each day, each week, each month? The more often you set goals, the more often you're going to achieve them. And that means seeing real progress more often, leading to learning pieces in less time, solidifying technique more quickly, and utilizing the practice time that you do have the most effectively. No more sitting and drilling passages or scales for 30 minutes or an hour while your brain wanders away. Make a plan, stick to it, and you'll learn faster than you ever have before in your life. If you found this information helpful, please give the video a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and ding that notification bell so you don't miss new videos. Practice smarter, like we talked about today, not harder. And I'll see you next time you visit Pianist Academy.